Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things. I am your host, Carrie Roberts, and today I'm doing something just slightly different as part of my Connected Conversation series, which is all about choosing a topic and kind of having a panel on to talk about it. But one of the things that I've been wanting to do for a long time is to showcase couples, people who've been together for a while, what's working, how they met, also kind of like a When Harry Met Sally type of movie moment. And if you haven't seen that, it's a wonderful movie, one of my favorites. And I had met Paul at an event a while back and told him about this concept. And he was like, my wife and I are on board. And now we've been able to do it. So I want to welcome Paul and Kate Hickey. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie. Good to be here. And it's really more like my wife, Kate, who's the star, who made me think like we would love to do this, you know, because I'm kind of boring and she's really the more extraordinary of the two.
I like it.
Already, here we go.
So I want to start, let's go back kind of for each of you individually. You know, I think when we're growing up, maybe when we're middle school teenagers, we have this idea in our head of like what dating might be like, or who we might marry, or what our life might be like, or what our perception of relationships is. And I'm curious what your perception was as a young teen or a young adult. Kate, I'll start with you.
You know, I don't know. I think I learned everything about relationships from my parents, and my parents had, you know, a really open, communicative relationship. And I saw, like, you know, the way that they loved each other and love each other. They're still together for 40 years. Is that something to the, no, how old am I? 40 years almost. So yeah, I mean, I think they were my first like introduction to the way that love should be. They're doing a lot of joking around. They're very opposite of each other in a lot of ways. So if I think back, I think that was sort of my barometer for love and for relationships. And then as I got older, you know, it was sort of who fits into my life. Like, I want this adventurous lifestyle and I don't want to be held back, and I want to do all these things. And so like, you're with me or you're not. And so I think that's kind of my younger Kate. That's where I got those early feelings of how I'm going to pick my partner, is like, who's ready to come on like the crazy train, you know?
Yeah, I love it. What about you, Paul? I'm always curious too, because I feel like men or boys when they're young maybe don't think about this. I mean, did you think about this? What were your thoughts?
I thought about it a little. I mean, before I get into it real quick, I will just say I agree with Kate. Like, her parents are amazing and they have a great love for one another. They have an amazing marriage, and I'm lucky to have them as in-laws. Yeah, I did think about it actually. Not a lot. I mainly thought about sports when I was a kid, but I did think about like getting married and having kids and like having a family. That was something that I just kind of felt like I wanted. That felt natural to me. So every once in a while I would think about it, whether it was just like daydreaming on the school bus or something like that every once in a while. And my dad has been an amazing role model for me in his relationships. He's been married twice. My biological mom passed away when I was 4, and then he got remarried when I was 8. But he's been married. They've been married now for about 35 years, between 30 and 35 years, somewhere in there. And they have an amazing relationship. Like, they take walks and hold hands, and like, that's their thing. So they're like really good role models for me as I think about like what it's going to be like when we're 50, 60.
You know, both of our parents always have each other's backs, like never in front of the other. I noticed that about like, and now that we're parents now, right? So we think about all these kinds of things, like you go back into your life and your childhood. And if I think about it, and I notice this about both of our parents, they always have each other's back in the moment, in front of the child. Like, you would never know that there would ever be dissent. Now I know how it actually works. You go behind the bedroom and you're like, what were you thinking? Like, you know, that was such a bad, but in the moment, I mean, and his parents do a fantastic job of it. Like, they're just always on each other's side. And I think that's one thing that we both took away from.
Yeah.
In our parenting, we both took that away. I think subliminally we did it.
Yeah, I think we're lucky that both of our sets of parents have great, strong relationships and marriages, and they really like each other, and they kind of role model spending time with each other for us. They they show us how to do that.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is really important because, in the psychology therapy world, people will always talk about, who is kind of your relationship that you look up to, and what you were saying in sports, you have athletes you look up to, but people don't always have people to look up to for relationships. And so the parents are the people that are there. And it's wonderful to hear that both of you have had great experiences and have a great model in front of you. So I want to talk about the first time the two of you ever met. Like I said, this when Harry met Sally moment. And who wants to tell it first? I want you to set the scene. How old were you? What was going on? Who's going to tell it first?
Can we swear on the show or no? Because that
yeah.
That kind of actually has something to do with the story.
Can I set the stage and then you can tell the story?
Love it. Okay, go.
So I was in my senior year at Michigan State, and Kate was a junior at Michigan State. And we had mutual friends, like a group of mutual friends for a couple years. My roommates and her roommates knew each other really well, and they were all friends in high school, but we had never met. So like for 2 years, we hadn't met at all. And then one night, her friends just brought her over to my house, basically. And then the next weekend, I decided that I had kind of had my eye on Kate, and we threw a wine and cheese party. Super cheesy of us. So it was like 6 guys living in this house in Michigan State.
So smart though.
And we got dressed up nice, cleaned up our house, which nobody ever did. No guys ever did that. And we had like really nice food and wine. And we only invited over like Kate and her friends, basically, and some other females. And then, I started talking to Kate. So I'll let her kind of take it from there.
But I feel like it's important to mention that like 2003, circa 2003, there were not like college kids were not drinking wine. I mean, you were maybe drinking it out of a bag like Franzia, but like there wasn't a wine and cheese kind of bougie stuff that we have now for college kids. So that was funny because it was such like a move, but all the girls didn't care. We were like, we're down. We'll put on a nice dress and do this.
It was September of 2002. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess that's important detail for me.
Yeah.
Because we were like, ooh,
sure.
like they're having this like fancy party. That's all it took. I think maybe a $16 investment and picking up your clothes. But anyway, so we got to the party. He was just kind of like in a little group of people talking, and everybody else ended up like leaving and dispersing from this group. So him and I were all that was left. We ended up talking. We were both working internships at the time in Detroit, but living in. And I just got back from Spain. We were both living in Michigan State, but we had just come off of having internships in Detroit proper. I'd come back from traveling, and we were having talks about this, and I could tell he was super driven. And maybe 5 minutes into it, he just looked me dead in the eyes. No kidding. We're probably not even half a glass of wine in, and he's just like, "I want to date the shit out of you." So that was it. And I was like, this dude, he is so forward. He's so funny. Like, who would say that? This is perfect. This is it. This is my guy. And so we moved it out of each other. And yeah.
Yeah, she was talking about like her internship. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love her. She's not
what was it about it though that you were like, because she was smart, she was driven, like what was it?
I think we both like were, in that moment, that was kind of a rarity to find somebody that was not just going to school and then like going to school happy hour moment. I think he had that drive. He had just gotten back, and I think you were in your suit from coming back, or you were late from your internship. At the time it was with the MBA, and that was really impressive. And yeah, I could just tell he had the drive. He's just wee and precious. You've met him, Carrie. Come on. Like, he's silent.
So you're wearing a suit and you did wine and cheese at college. He was putting on the moves, Kate. He was
telling you it was pretty cheese dick, but I'm telling you, it worked. So I can't really fault him for it.
I love that. Yeah. I absolutely love that. That's adorable. And yes, like I said, I've met Paul in person, and he is always smiling and always talking to people, and just a good energy, which I can totally understand. So, when you decide to date the shit out of each other, what does that look like? You know, where are you taking each other out? What was maybe your first date? And did you continue to have this feeling, or were you like, I don't know about this person? How did it feel?
Well, I remember our first date, but you go ahead.
Do what? It was the movies?
Yeah, at Wells Hall.
Oh God, we were poor.
We were
poor.
Kate took me to a dollar movie.
Yeah,
at Wells Hall.
Like we couldn't even afford the
Michigan
theater.
State.
It was like you go to the where you had
Where you
math,
had class.
Like,
yeah, where you had
Thursday, and now it's Friday, and they just on the projector put the movie, and the movie was bad, and I was wearing a bucket hat. Why did you like
I don't know why
me?
you wore a bucket.
I don't know.
But I wore turtlenecks all the time.
Oh yeah.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, we were a hot mess, but we just connected. I don't know. I don't really remember all that, honestly. It's just been you and I. Like, I just feel like it's team us, and then I don't know.
She just had like substance to her. She wasn't like, and she knew who she was, and I felt like I knew who I was, and we just clicked. Like she didn't care what other people thought, and she was just herself, and that was really attractive.
Oh, I just love that. I just want to share.
I didn't want a relationship. I think that's why it worked. I did not want to like be in a relationship. So like whoever was going to be was just going to be bonus. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And he was just like, oh my gosh, I'm not even looking for you, but you're so great. You had so much.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
We were kind of in the similar mindsets.
Yeah.
Like we weren't
actively.
We were only 20. We had each just turned 21. Or you hadn't even turned 21 yet. I had just turned 21. Kate was about to turn 21, and we were just like in college, like having fun, but then it just clicked. And
thank God we didn't mess that up.
You know, it's interesting that you said that, Kate, because I think it happens to a lot of people. We hear it, but we don't believe it. It's when you're not looking for something and you're just being your full self and living your life that you tend to meet people. Whereas a lot of times people are trying to impress or trying to be something they're not. And I love that both of you were like, no, this is who I am. Even at 20, 21 years old, this is who I am. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
I want to just share something real quick. We have Daydreams with Dylan stopping by. And they said, this is such an important conversation. People have such a dystopia take on what a healthy relationship actually is. My wife and I have been together since freshman year in high school. Love that. We love hearing that as well. So, okay. So let me ask you, if you feel comfortable sharing, do you remember the first time that you said, I love you to each other? And was it easy? Did it feel weird? Was there like, what was kind of that moment for you in either hearing that or saying that to somebody?
Now, this might not shock you, but I remember.
Of course. I don't remember. I will say one thing before he answers the question, because I don't remember anything past this morning, but I will say that I think it also is about, being comfortable saying the words I love you. And I've always had no problem being able to say that to like friends, family. I think it was just how I was raised. I just don't think you can say it enough. So I'm not to discount him and I saying that to each other, but I think it's just something important on just a complete side note, that you can't say that enough to people, and you can't say it too soon. And I think people get so scared and nervous about, like the I love you mom, and like it's this big deal. And it is. I mean, I don't think you should just like throw your love around willy-nilly, but I also don't think there's anything wrong with sharing, with sharing that phrase more often. I think it holds too much weight, and so people wait for it and become anxious and fearful when really, what's going to happen? The person doesn't say it back to you. That's the worst that can happen. I don't know. That's just a complete aside with my non-psychology degree. Your turn.
I agree. I mean, my parents said it and still say it to me like 30 times a day, basically. And I say it to our kids, and they get annoyed with how often I say it. But it's just a very common thing to say. I remember the first time I told Kate that I loved her. We both said it at the same time, basically. Aww. In my room at school at Michigan State, same house we met in. And I think it was maybe after we'd been dating for 4 months. And so one thing we really had going for us, speaking of love, is we had our friends all loved each other, and our friends like loved our relationship and us together. So like we were constantly around nothing but positivity related to each of us as individuals and each of us and us as a couple.
We're lucky like that.
Yeah.
We had like people around us loving us. And I think that adds to it. It makes it easier and less scary.
Yeah, I like how you're saying too, I grew up in a very similar family where it was just said all the time, and some people never have heard that before. So it can hold a lot of weight. And I think what you're saying, Kate, is like, yeah, so many people feel anxious. They're like, what if they don't say it back? Should I say it? And I love your perspective on that. I think if you're feeling that, like you're saying, just say it in that moment, and it's okay to feel that too. So now, you're pretty young in college. When did you decide, okay, we're going to fast forward a little bit to decide, okay, I want to get married. This is my person. This is who I want to be with for the rest of my life. Like, how old were you when that kind of happened? And did you both kind of feel that early on, or what was your feelings on that as a whole?
We were kind of the first people in our friend group we were the first people to get married in our friend group for sure, and engaged for the most part, like on the whole. I just think it just felt really natural. I mean, we didn't want to not be with each other. So that was just a natural next step.
It's so simple. They always say, like, when you know, and like, it's just so easy. It's not to say things are perfect. I think people watching and listening, no relationship is the same. Nothing is perfect. But I think what you're saying is it's not so much a struggle. It just felt maybe more comfortable or felt right. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think
my mom gave me good advice on this. I was like nervous. I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Like, is this like, I know I'm supposed to know when I know, but do I know? Or am I just like, what do I do? I think I was just getting cold feet. And she said, she worded it much better than this, but something to the effect of, if you choose to not have this life, you'll never be able to get it back. And so I think that really hit me hard. Like, if I have to say goodbye to him and I don't ever get to have him back, that's the answer. I hate to equate it with this, but like, when you want to go out to eat and someone's like, oh, like we can go here or here. And then they're like, oh, let's go here. And you're like, no, I really wanted you to pick the other thing. It's because that's what you really wanted. And so I think that's a terrible example for love, but you get my point. It's like, I was like, oh, okay, well, I can't not live with him forever. Oh, I guess that's okay. I know that's a backwards answer, but it was really good advice. And I needed that at the time when I was just not unsure, but just scared as to what I was doing, like a lifetime decision.
I'm loving how you both are breaking things down. I think you're saying it in a really simple way for people to understand, because I think emotions are very gray, but sometimes there are things that it's like, well, do you want this life or that life? And really thinking deep down what it means. And I love that you're both so honest about that. Now, how long have you been married for?
It'll be 15 years coming up.
Congratulations. Oh, that was adorable. And you have 2 kids. How old are your children?
11 and 9.
11 and 9. So how has your relationship changed now that you have 2 children? Because it's different when it's just the 2 of you, but now you bring in 2 kids into your life. How has that kind of changed your relationship? How do you make sure there's time for the 2 of you as well?
It feels like we've had multiple lifetimes in our relationship. Not in a bad way, but like in a just phased sort of way. And I think like the family children phase has like really helped us to become a team and like really get in the trenches with one another. I think it like tested me to be a dad and then become a dad like of a second kid, and just like really buying into the family strength, like building the strength of a family just kind of has like strengthened our relationship and made us a team. And I just feel like because we're a team, we just have, our relationship is at a whole level that I didn't even know existed when we got married.
Yeah, totally. 100%. I think with kids, it's just a whole different, it's like, I feel like there's like different phases of Kate and Paul. It's like there's the young partier, just us, phase. And then when we were poor, and then it was like building a family, and then it was building a business. And now it's like building this unit, I guess, this cohesive, like this dreamy state that we're sort of in, I feel like, with our kids. So yeah, all these different chapters have been really cool. And as you go through it with somebody who feels like such a strong teammate, I don't know, it's just fun, I guess.
Yeah. I think perspective helps for me also. I think like when things feel like they're getting hard, this is going to sound super cliche, but like I actually pretend sometimes, like not purposefully, that, what if one of us had a really bad health crisis, or what if one of our kids wasn't like fully able-bodied, or, and then it just kind of like snaps me immediately back into feeling so fortunate for the position that we're in and the family that we have, that it's almost like easy to be happy all the time with this family, because when it comes down to it, we really don't have anything really that hard. Like we don't have like a lot of the hard stuff that some other couples and other families have. So I feel really lucky about that.
That's good perspective. Yeah.
I just want to share, Maria says this couple is amazing. It's you. I think you can, as people are watching and listening, you can feel the care that you have for one another, which is extremely important. Another thing that you just briefly mentioned, you two actually work together. So you own a business together, you work together. That's a whole nother dynamic. How did that happen, first of all? And then how do you separate it? How do you make sure, like, okay, that's work, this is personal time? How do you keep that separate?
How did it happen?
I don't know. How did it happen?
It was not a plan. Question, it was
Carrie.
Not a plan.
Carrie Roberts. Gosh, like, work brings you so close in kind of, in not the best way, actually. So we really have had to delineate work from us as a couple. I mean, I've said multiple times, like, we can't talk about this anymore. Like, let's just go back into like regular life mode. So yeah, I mean, working together in some ways has been fantastic, right? Because I know that the person backing me up is not just like some coworker, it's my husband. Like, I know he's got my back and vice versa. But it's just a lot of communication, I feel like, and it's also allowing and allotting time for each other and for all of our different needs. So it's like, okay, this is going to be time that we go out on the plaza and we have a drink. And we're not going to talk about work. Okay. Like, okay. And then like, this is going to be a meeting and we'll schedule it. Like, he's a super, super like ninja with his time. So from 9 to, 10, I have to like block off time in his calendar to like have a chat about that specific thing. So I think compartmentalizing a lot of our communication has been really helpful. I can't stand it. Just because I'm like a person that busts into the room like, oh, you want to go to coffee? Like, let's screw our plans for the day and like live a life. And he's like, no, Kate, like, you booked from 10:30 to 10. I'm like, oh, but that's kind of why like our opposites attract and why it works. But I've learned to come his way on that for sure, and kind of say, okay, we're going to take a trip every year. We do that every year without kids. That's super important. And that's when like we do like our deep stuff, like our dreaming and our like thinking and our reminiscing. That is really, really special time that I'm so glad that we've done. It always hasn't been super glamorous. Like, we went to Greece one time, and then I think we went to like Gatlinburg one time. I mean, it's never been perfect, but it's always been like time away for us to just have with each other. Yeah, that's kind of my take on like the work is compartmentalizing and the communication. What about you, Sweets?
Yeah, I'm glad that it happened, but it definitely didn't happen as a planned thing. It kind of happened as like a thing that just made sense for our entire life. And when we started out as a couple, I don't know how most couples are. I would guess that a lot of couples are like this. Like, I think we both loved our time away from each other, and that made the time that we had together more exciting. And so like, you would go to work, I would go to work before we started Data Driven Design. And then we'd be super interested in like the other one
Like
and their day and their life, and then with data-driven design, we've been working together for about 5 years now, and there are some really positive things about working with each other, but then there are some times like that are a little bit more difficult to kind of get that time that you didn't have like in your professional career, where you did have that absence make the heart grow fonder, like for the day,
Yeah.
So especially like having moved over to Spain and basically doing everything with each other, we've just had to work through that, and I'm glad that we have. It's been like another phase.
Yeah.
Knowing that we can work through those things, like making us even stronger.
Carrie, we're also in an apartment that's like the size of probably the room you're in. So
yeah.
No, it's. I think the other part of it though that's kind of interesting is that you've spent a lot of time with the person when you work together, but you haven't spent any quality time at all.
Yes.
So like we were in the same room, we're talking about things, but we are not spending time like loving each other, filling each other's buckets. We were just spending time being like, is that done? Did you talk to so-and-so? Like, is this client upset? How did you fix it? What are we going to do about this? We weren't having any connection there. So, and for the kids, it was a little bit confusing because it's like, okay, well, you guys have spent all day together. And because we'd be like, oh, we're going to go like out with friends. We're going to go have like a drink downstairs at the plaza or whatever. And they'd be like, but you've been together all day. And I'm like, well, we haven't. So the whole kid piece of them watching us build a business too is really interesting. They feel invested in it as well, which is good. And, sometimes not so great. I mean, they're watching, they're watching behind the scenes of a relationship and a working relationship. So you've got like, two things working there.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought that up, that just because you're in the same room together working on a project, it's not the same as quality relationship time. I think any couple that's working together, they feel that, but maybe haven't been able to articulate that. So I like that you're kind of showing the difference between those two. Another thing that's very interesting about you as a couple is you do live in Spain. So you were in the US for a long time, and you decided to live in Spain. Why Spain? How did this kind of happen? And on a side note, you were telling me, Kate, is that you guys were also on HGTV International House Hunters. Is that correct? Was that the show?
Mm-hmm.
Which is so cool. For anyone listening or watching, I watch that show all the time. I was telling them, I was like, how do these people do it? Who are they? And then she's like, we've done it. So that's really cool. So tell us a little bit about first kind of why Spain, why you chose to kind of leave the US and live there. And then maybe you can go into how you got onto this show as well.
Yeah, which you want to take a part of it?
Yeah, so in terms of moving to Spain, it was something that we both kind of dreamed about when we were on our honeymoon. In 2005, we were traveling on our honeymoon, and back then it didn't really even seem like a possibility because in 2005, a remote workplace type of situation like didn't really exist. And so I remember thinking like, how would we move abroad? Like we would need to get jobs abroad in a country with a different language. Like, I don't know about that. And fast forwarding to 2017, it became much more possible. And having a business that was remote, we wanted our kids to grow up speaking Spanish. That was something that Kate learned how to do at a young age. And so we felt like that would be amazing for our kids to be able to speak Spanish natively and fluently. And so then we really liked the idea of living in Europe in terms of like the lifestyle and more laid back approach to everything. And so Spanish speaking plus Europe equals Spain. And so we did our research. We went on a trip and scouted out a couple different places and fell in love with a city called Valencia. So we live in Valencia. It's the third largest city in Spain. And we have a lot of great friends here. And it's been an amazing experience so far. So and then I'll let Kate add to that and talk about the House Hunters journey. That was really cool.
Yeah. Well, we were huge fans of the show, and I think it's actually helped with when the kids were young. When we moved here, the kids were 6 and 8. No. Mm-hmm. So at 6 and 8, they didn't really have like a concept of what it would be like. So Max and I was 7 at the time, would watch that show, and he's like, "Oh, this is so neat! Like, look at how these people live, and look at a city and the different things." And it kind of got it. Oh, look, they have like an elevator in their house. That's so cool. So I think that kind of slow rolled him into the process of what it would feel like to live somewhere else, because I have kids on the show. So I'm like, what if we applied for that show? He's like, yeah, mama, do it. So I applied for the show, I think in November. It's just an email. It's not like this formal application process or anything. And then they didn't answer back. And I think I followed up and just copied and pasted and sent the same thing in February. And they reached back out, and we had it was kind of stressful, like the whole process, just because you're in the middle of moving and now you're filming like 8 hours a day. But what a blast, like getting to know all the people on the crew, which we're still good friends with now, like the producers, the cameramen, the sound guys, like we're all still really close with them. So I loved that part. I loved, the journey with, they ask you so much about your backstory, kind of like this conversation, and it really lets you kind of tap into like your love and your story. And you really never verbalize like why you chose your partner, especially in front of them. So it was just kind of a cool like reminder and a time capsule of that time in our life. And like a historical, I guess, yeah, this just takes you down memory lane and as to, why you've done this and why you're together. I think everybody should do that. I wish I could have those interview questions that they ask you and give them to every couple and be like, why are you in love? I think it's such a cool reminder. And I hope your listeners could do, I think this is a cheap and easy way to say like, why did we fall in love with each other? What do I love about you? I mean, they made you on camera sit there and say all this stuff, and you didn't think that's where it was going, right? Because you're just trying to find a house and those kinds of things. But it actually it went in a whole different direction. And I really loved that. It made me talk to my family about it and why we're moving. And it just kind of brought you, like it grounded you instead of sort of centered you and kept you away from like Europe, blah, 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 budget, none of that. So yeah, it was a really cool process for ways that I didn't ever think. They were surprising.
Yeah. And I think, what you're mentioning is that a good storytelling makes a difference. So like you said, when you watch that story, even though it's like, a half hour, you are really invested in the couples that are there. You hear people say, oh, I like her. Oh, I don't like him. You're having this conversation, or, oh, that's cute, or, oh, that's how they're doing it. And so it's great to hear that from behind the scenes, they're really trying to get into the people and showcase. So did you find, I know you're living in a different place now, but did you find your place through that show?
In a roundabout way, yes and no, because our realtor on the show helped us find the place. And without him, I don't think we would have been connected to House Hunters. You see what I'm saying? So in a roundabout way, yes. But of course, like with contracts and all these, it doesn't like quite work exactly like in time per se. But the answer in short would be, if I had to give you a yes or no, is yes.
Yeah, that's just so cool. You guys have been through a lot of different things, as we're talking about. And again, no couple is perfect. Not everything is hunky-dory all the time. When the two of you come in a moment of conflict, can you share with how you deal with that? Again, everybody's going to deal with it differently, but is there any maybe things that you have found that's work, or any advice that you have?
I can share some things that have worked better for me progressively throughout the years than what happened early on in our relationship. Yeah. So I think this is a good example of like the phases of our marriage. So like early on, we were young, and we might get into a conflict, and then I, not knowing how to react, would kind of like feel like it would be the best time to hash it out right then and there so that we can move forward. And Kate's very good at that. So that's like not a problem at all. And it actually never was a problem. But what I've learned actually works better for me now. What I do is we're in a situation.
Yeah, you're fine. You're good.
If we're in a situation where like I feel like I have a problem with something, or there's some kind of conflict, I like to now just kind of get quiet and move past it. Realize that Kate is such a good communicator that we will be able to talk about it later. And I think that's something you probably have had to like, it may have confused you a little bit, because early on, so often in our relationship, it'd be like, okay, we're going to hash through it right now. Well, now it's like, I actually prefer to table it. We're going to be fine. Let's just push through whatever we need to push through. And then I'm going to like make a mental note to talk to you about it later. And the good thing about Kate, one of the best things about her is that like, she is always willing to listen to any problem that I have with anything and keep an open mind about it and not judge me. And I think that's probably why we've made it so far, is because like I'm probably the more sensitive one in our relationship. So like I can kind of know, all right, if I have a problem with something, she's going to listen, just relax. We'll handle it later. And I think it's really helped kind of chill me out a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's how I handle it.
I think we also talk like in neutral times. Like we'll talk about like, we're not always trying to hash out the like and air out the dirty stuff when we are in like a heightened state. It's sort of like bring it up on neutral time so that that neither of us are like invested in that moment or trying to like solve that problem. It's like, let's do this over, like, let's talk about what frustrates us with getting the kids out of the house in the morning, but like do it over wine or dinner on a neutral day that has nothing to do. And that morning we might've had a great morning. So it's kind of like kind of reverse engineering and thinking about when, like, that's why you're talking about table it. You're right. Like I did want to like hash it out because kind of in my family, it's like, hey, you know, shut up, I hate you. Like, oh, pass the, you know, casserole. Like we could like go there and then come out of it very fast just because we can like spiral up and down that way, where he would like have to process and like it would just be like harder for him to just be like insta forgive, where I can be like, and we're moving on. So it's been nice for both of us to kind of have that middle ground. And so we will talk about the frustrations in a perfectly good moment because it's not ruining a moment. Nobody's coming like charged, you know, we're just in a neutral state. So that's probably, and I think we never go to bed angry.
Yeah.
We don't walk away from each other.
Yeah.
And we don't go to bed angry.
Yeah, that's true. If we're ever angry at each other, like before bed, like we will actually have the conversation for as long as it takes before we go to sleep. Like we've never harbored something into the next day, and we've never like left the house and like not come back for hours without like figuring it out. So if it gets like really bad or really intense, like then we drop everything and handle it right there. But if it's like something little, like Kate was saying, we don't want to ruin the moment. That's where I was talking about, okay, I don't really know what to say right now, but I know like we can have a good conversation about it later. So let me just bring it back later at a better time. Kate's also really good at like anticipating when we're at our worst. I would say like our worst is not even really that bad, just but like
busy or something.
When we're like, she's good at anticipating like when there's going to be conflict coming up. And like a good example is like when we go visit our families. I think something that maybe if there's other couples watching right now, tuning in, like families visiting other family members is always stressful for everyone. And like, I don't think people acknowledge that enough. And so Kate will say, okay, we're about to go visit my parents, and then we're going to go visit your parents. Let's talk about how much time we're going to get to spend with each other. Like, what are you going to need? What am I going to need? And then we work through that ahead of time. And that really, really helps.
My friend Jewel gave me like the best advice ever. She said, you can never over communicate. And I just feel like that's so true. Like you can't over communicate. I mean, there'd be sometimes like on a Friday morning where it's like, okay, let's talk about how we want this weekend to go. Like I need to get Max's like soccer stuff, and we have to go to this, and we have to go. And I need to get this done. What do you need out of the weekend? And he'll be like, I need to do this long run, and I need to relax because I have this, or this injury that I need to whatever it is. Like, I feel like we're constantly communicating even about the weekend, but if not, I bring expectations to it, and so does he. And then we're both we're both cut short because we didn't talk about what we needed done, or what, we just didn't set any expectations. So we would both end up disappointed. And I think we figured that out in like phase 1, Kate and Paul, that was not smart. And so to this day, we will be like, okay, what do we want to accomplish this weekend? I'll be like, we have to clean out the cubbies in the front room. Like, it's making me nuts. Okay, well, when can we do that? And, we talk about cubbies, like, we will talk about a cubby.
We will talk about everything. Like we micro communicate
because you have
down to the point where like you just made me realize like not only do we plan for the day and for the weekend, but like there'll be times we'll be sitting in the same room and I'll say, hey, I'm just gonna like go put my laundry away real quick. Like I'll announce what it is that I'm about to go do for like the next 5 minutes. Like I want to go empty the dishwasher, and then I'll like go empty. And I think the reason why I do that is because I want Kate and everyone to know, like, don't think that I'm like running off away from the family, like for hours, like I'll be right back. I mean, and I actually think they might think I'm super annoying, but I think I'm trying to actually just communicate. Like, if you need something, I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Well, Carrie, you have to remember that we had one bathroom for 4 people, and we lived.
So you had to communicate that.
I'm going in here. It's a number one. Like, because if not, I think, but that's a lot of this move that has taught us too, is like that we are a team and that we have to communicate a lot. And so people might be like, oh, like you live in Europe and like you drink sangria on the beach and like, and you go to France on the weekend. And like, yeah, we do that sometimes too. But like a lot of it is about, it's about like hard stuff, lots of change and how can we do this together? And I think it's just a lot of communication, and it's just become normalized for me now. I don't even realize that we're doing it. It just has become a habit.
Yeah, I actually love that you kind of do those micro communications. I enjoy that in general. So that's funny that you mentioned that. So talking about over communication during quarantine, my understanding, because I think I saw, Paul, you posted this, like in Spain, you weren't allowed to like go outside. Was that correct? Like you were kind of stuck in here. So I'm curious, during that time, a lot of couples were like, I'm going insane. We're going insane by ourselves. We can't go anywhere. We're being sick. There's so much stress. How did the 4 of you really deal with this?
Well, Paul had to work a lot. So I think we communicated about this and I was like, look, you're going to work. You're going to go into your office. He has an office with a door, which is like very exciting. I'm okay with it. So he goes in his office and he was just going to work, right? Like he had to get that done, that piece of it with our business. And so I just basically kind of like petered off like some of our clients and I just stopped and I was just with the kids. So that was a huge adjustment. We couldn't leave the house for 6 weeks. So the kids were not allowed to leave our home at all. We have like little terrace neighbors here. I don't know if you can see it because it's backlit, but right across the way, we have like 2 little boys that were there. So we would do like concerts for them and we would like play with them and talk to them. That helped a lot. But yeah, we couldn't leave this apartment for 6 weeks. And that was, I can't believe we did that.
Yeah, we weren't even really allowed to go out into the hallway outside our door unless we were going to get groceries or go to the doctor, which luckily we never had to do that. But yeah, other than going to get groceries, which was once a day, you're allowed.
I was allowed to leave once a day to go.
One
get groceries.
person from each house was allowed to leave to go get groceries.
And they would, the police would check you. Like you had to have like your little, what is it? Like a carrito that you, like a little
cart.
Pusher. Yeah, a cart that you had to take to the grocery store and like prove that you had like gotten groceries. You had to have something in it. Yeah, they were really, really strict. So that was a tough time for us. But again, it was, we would have my dad like ran like a little school for my kids for like an hour, a couple times a week. And we just got creative with like dish soap on the floor and we had like roller skates and
luckily we all like each other. We figured out.
We did like movies. We did a little bit of school, like FaceTiming with family. We just did it all. Everything you can possibly think of. We had like an egg drop contest, like off of our balcony. We did paper airplanes to our neighbor. Like we had to get so creative, but yeah, I think that's just, God, I can't believe we did that. I'll tell you how we survived that piece of it. I had one day where I just said like, no one can talk to, it's a yes day. And we have this on your birthday. When you have a yes day, you have to say yes to everything. So I had a yes day. I went in my bedroom, locked the door, and I was like on vacation. So they could eat whatever they want. They didn't have to ask me anything. They could watch, eat, and do whatever they wanted in the house. So I had like a vacation inside the house. I think that was like probably 4 weeks in. And I think it really saved my sanity because I just needed to be my own person and not,
There are people like Kate and there are people like me. I was built for being quarantined in a 900 square foot apartment for 6 weeks. I had no problem at all. None at all.
But is that because you're more introverted? Like you like kind of that quiet time and by yourself?
I loved it.
But not even being able to leave the house?
Yeah,
it.
Well, no, that sucked because I do like to go run every morning and work out outside. So I couldn't, but I jumped rope inside and did little workouts inside. but yeah, no, other than that, like other than leaving to go run, I'm totally fine just staying in all day, working. Hanging out.
I am.
I'm with you, Kate. Yeah,
I did
I
legitimately
mean,
feel bad for you.
yeah.
Like I was worried for her, and she made it through.
All we were struggling. We were struggling big time. And I had to watch the kids, and they were going through their own, ish at the time. It's like they were having their own, withdrawals from friends and anxiety around school, and they were afraid of the disease and all of these things. So you were suppressing because you were trying to take care of, and then so for Paul, it was not that hard, other than to watch his people like not doing their best.
Yeah, that's what it was. That was the hardest.
You were
part.
super supportive, but
I did kind of miss
it was just
like Spain. I did it because like it was weird to just be like kind of be nowhere in the world is kind of like what it felt. Probably for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then once May 1st, things kind of opened up again here, and then it was like, oh, okay, now it's much better. So yeah.
That is too funny. Do you have just any overall advice, again, as we're people are watching and listening, again, every couple's dynamic is different, nothing is perfect, but any advice that you would share for people that are in relationships or people that are looking for a relationship of what they should be looking for or what makes a healthy couple, anything you want to share?
My biggest thing is like, if you feel like you're yourself with the person, then it's potentially a good match for you. But anyone that you don't feel like yourself around in any way, like a good example of that is if you're going to bring that person around your friends or your family, like what's your comfort level feel like in that situation? For me, I've never from day one ever felt like I wasn't 100% myself around Kate. So like for me, that was an indicator. So my advice would be on a macro level, like if you can find the person that you feel like you can be yourself around all the time, then that's definitely a good potential match for you. Yeah. And then on a micro level, like the communication thing is definitely number one. We've already talked about that a lot, but yeah, I mean, you got to be able to communicate with the person, and people will say like, well, you grow together, and like, but that's like a very dreamy term. Like really the way that you grow together is that you communicate with each other all the time. And then you do have to sacrifice, like sacrifice being relative. Like I'm not sacrificing the way that like people think of the word sacrifice, but like you're not going to get everything the way that you want it all the time. And the sooner that you realize that, then like you'll definitely be happier. So I think being yourself, communicating, and then like being able to sort of give in a little bit and not have to like win every little micro battle to get things and be right all the time, and then you're going to be good.
Gosh, that's such a hard question to answer. Like I'm listening to you. That's just a hard. I guess I'm thinking of like, how would I answer this if my daughter were asking me like, how should I have a relationship? Like, what would I tell her? Gosh, I think that you have to be able to like dream with the person, and they have to believe in you. Like, I think that one of the things that Paul's taught me the most is that like, he'll believe in me when I don't believe in me. So, I'm going to cry. Like, if I have any harebrained idea, like I want to start a school or I want to like do this or that, like he was like, you can do it. Like, I believe in you, you can do it. So finding that somebody that I think too, that you're proud of. I see a lot of people like in some sort of like cringy moments where they're with somebody else and they're like, ooh, it's almost like they are like awkward within their own relationship, like watching, it's like you're omniscient and you're watching that person and they're going like, ooh. I think you should be able to like have that person by your side and sit at any meal, and it's like you could take them anywhere. And I think I knew that about you so early on that I could just like my little pocket pal, like I could take him anywhere, and he would just be awesome, and he would be fun, and he would be like optimistic, and he would tell me I could do it, and I would tell it. It just, I don't know, that I guess optimism. I think what I'm trying to say, because I didn't prep for this clearly, is like optimism. I think you like that faith in the other person and the optimism that you can do it, that they can do it, and that together you can do it, whatever it is. That's huge. And I think that's something that he's taught me for sure is like to believe, I guess, in like the possibilities. And you know him in business, Carrie, like he's very like go getcha, and like he's really forward thinking, and he's an entrepreneur through and through. And so he takes that same mantra like in his love life too. It's like we can do anything. And sometimes I forget that, and then sometimes he forgets that on the personal side. So he brings it in business and I bring it in personal. I'm like, we can move to Spain, we can do it. Like we can send our kids to school there, we can do our business there. And he's like, yeah. And then same for business. Like, you know, it's raising each other up constantly. I think I see so many couples that are constantly pushing each other down. It's like, you're doing this wrong and you're doing that. And what about that? Where I think we never harp on that with each other. It's like, look how wonderful you are at this. And like, thank you for that. I think we bring the little stuff too. Like the little stuff is really big. And Paul will be like, oh, thank you for getting a pineapple. And I'm like, you're so cheesy. And then I'm thinking, that's really nice that he would thank me to get you know what I'm saying? Like those little things like are really big things.
And thank you for cutting the pineapple.
Well, I bought it cut.
For when you cut it.
Yes. Thank you. When you took the trash out. And I think I learned that from him is like, he's really good at the micro thank yous and kindness where I'm not, that's just not my love language. I don't speak like that. And yeah, it's being positive. I guess that's my answer. So when my daughter asks me that, I don't know why not my son, but that's the answer is the faith and positivity.
I'd like to thank my parents for that because they're both very. I think I get that from them.
Yes.
They're always positive all the time about every little thing. So.
Yes. And they're vocal about it too. Like, hey, thank you for noticing that. Or like, you know, I mean, that adds up because it also tears down. And I see like a lot of unhealthy couples doing the like, why didn't he do it? And like, you just ate the thing and you just left it there. And you just and like you can spiral that way or you can spiral the other way. And so it's just habit. I'm reading such a good book on this right now. Not on relationships, but it's called Atomic Habits. And if you think of it in a love relationship, it's also the same way. It's like, good morning, I love you. Like, I don't think people do that. I wouldn't do that if it weren't for you. I'm like, coffee, or like, I want to read. You know, like, you take the time to vocalize the little stuff. And sometimes I think it's cheesy. But now that we're on a podcast, I like it.
That's good.
Right.
I just love this. This is its own show in itself, the Paul and Kate show. I think it's adorable. The last couple of questions. So on this kind of small note, I think you're right. I think it's the micro things every day that matter. What is something that you, so I'll start with you, Paul. What is something that Kate did recently for you that was just small, but really showed that she loved you and appreciated you and cared for you?
Just yesterday, I was in my office working and she just walked in with my favorite like snack and just set it right there on my desk. And it's an acai bowl with
they don't care
chopped
about the
up peanuts.
They don't care about the no.
And she just, but it's not like a thing that you just have. It's like she went out and like got me one and brought it in. It was very nice.
It's easy.
That's adorable. And Kate, what about you? What's something that Paul has done recently that showed you appreciation, care, admiration?
Gosh, I don't know. I think like he's just really vocal about like his love. Like if you ask any of our friends, like they would probably laugh about it, but they're like, oh, Sweets, you look so pretty. Or like, oh, I really like your outfit. Or like, those are super cool shoes, Sweets. Like you should buy them. Like he's just very like excited for me and optimistic. And like I said earlier, when I was like tearing up, it's because he's so like, he just really believes in me. So I feel that all the time from him. So it just makes it joyful to be around. You know, it just makes it easy, I guess, to live with somebody that's just got your back like that. And that is just positive, I guess.
Well, everybody listening and watching, if this does not give you hope, I don't know what else will, because I think, like I said, when we started this, we hear so much of the negativity or, the bad things that are happening. And a lot of times healthy, happy couples don't really share their story because there's no drama. They're just enjoying life and they figure stuff out. And again, it's not about being perfect. It is about kind of, like you said, communicating, find what works for you. And I thank you so much for sharing. A lot of this stuff is personal, and I appreciate you sharing it with us. I know, like you said, Paul, you have a business. Well, you both have a business together. And Kate, you have kind of this, I want to say, lifestyle account as well. If people want to connect with you, if they want to follow you or ask questions, is there a place that they can do that on social media?
Yeah, for me, I have like a travel website and blog that I run. It's called, our last name is Hickey, so it's called hickeyseverywhere.com. And that's also my Instagram handle. And I would love to talk about relationship with anybody. We're not perfect. And I appreciate you, Carrie, asking all these questions, because it's nice. Like I said, I think it's something every couple should do, is like, why do we love each other and how do we do it? And talk about sort of these positive things. Because when would you ever have a chance to talk like this unless you're, being interviewed by somebody else? So if it's not a counselor, get yourself a Carrie Roberts and talk through this stuff, because I think it's really therapeutic. So thank you so much for having us and for digging in, and hopefully we can connect on Hickeys Everywhere. And then Paul, you want to tell them the business stuff?
Yeah. So on Instagram, it's at data-driven design, and datadriven.design is the website. So if people want to connect with me, they can go to the Instagram handle at datadriven design, or if you want to just email me, paul@datadriven.design, that'd be great too. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for doing this show, because when I heard that you were going to do this positivity modeled story versus like all the negativity and the drama, I am like a huge cheerleader for that. So kudos to you, and thanks so much for having us on. It really means a lot.
Yes, thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing more in the future. So thank you for being here.
Thanks again.